So the focus of this tutorial is now going to be on how to actually make somebody win level 1 and how do we tell the computer that somebody's won so that we can start to think about level 2. Just a reminder, I can make this smaller at any time that I want, and I can also zoom in and out of my code here. This is going to be handy as we start to get more and more code. We can see we've already got quite a bit going on. And also just a reminder that you should be commenting as you go. So for example, I could take this if block, I could add a comment, and I could say something like, this tells the computer when the player gets a point. Okay, so again, comments are just English sentences that help explain what your code is doing. I'm not going to do it all the time in the tutorial, but I'm trying to give you some reminders so you get those easy points. Okay, let's stop my game now, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about how to make the computer check to see if somebody has won or not. So we're going to go under control and we're going to go and grab another if block. This one I don't need to be nested within this condition anymore. I can have it kind of forever check to see if this has happened. So I'm going to go ahead and take the if block and just kind of like put it here. So you can see that it's still in the forever, but it's not in this if. It's not nested within that. And I'm going to go ahead and now check to see if something is true. So again, we're talking about operators. I'm going to check to see if something is equal to something. And again, the thing that we're curious about is if somebody has 5 points. So there's going to be different conditions now depending on if the computer has 5 points or if the player has 5 points. So first I'm going to check to see if the player has 5 points. So I'm going to go down to my variables. I'm going to grab the player score and check to see if that is equal to 5. Well, if it is, we know that somebody has won the first level, and we know that a whole bunch of things are going to change in level 2. That is our goal. So we can just, don't forget to tell the user that something's happened here, right? Everybody forgets things like that. We know what's going on, but we need the player to know what's going on. So you could say something like, player 1 wins round 1. There we go. And we could have that show up on the screen for a certain amount of time. Okay. The other thing that we have to do though, so that kind of tells the player what's happened, but we need it also to tell the computer what's happened, if that makes any sense. So this is when you get into a type of control called broadcast. And broadcasting is basically giving the computer a message that something has happened instead. Okay, so actually it's under events, sorry, not control. Under events, you're going to see the broadcast message. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and broadcast a message at this point. And again, what broadcasting means is it's telling the computer that something's happened, not so much the user. The user never sees this. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new message, and I'm going to say player 1 wins round 1. So that'll be the message that the computer gets. This is me keeping track of things so that level 2 can start when it gets that message, and we'll get to that in a second. I might also go back to that variable that I made that was called round, and I might change that to something else, okay? So I could change let's just put this in here. I could change the round by 1, which would now make the round 2 at that point. That might come in handy. Maybe I want to adjust the speed of the paddle or something later on, and I want to know what this round variable is. So I'm just going to have that go as well. Okay. So now I'm going to have basically the same code, and I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to put it underneath that if statement. Make sure it's not inside. This is the number one mistake I see people make. They'll accidentally put this if statement inside of that. Well, you're never going to have the condition that they both have 5 points. So you got to make sure that these if statements are separate, that they're in the forever, but that they're not inside of one another. So I'm going to take out the player score because this one's going to check to see if the computer is equal to 5. So let's check to see if the computer score is equal to 5. If it is, we could say better luck next time because they've lost. Obviously, we don't want to broadcast a message to the computer that they've won, and we actually don't need to change the round by one either because the game is basically over. All right. So this game, at least my game, is going to be set up that they only have one chance. And if they fail in round one, then they've got to restart the whole game. If they fail in round two, they've got to restart the whole game. So that's how mine's going to be set up. If you want to get into different variations of that, you can. But I would try to always code exactly what I have first to save that and then to see if you can change it from then. I'm also, just to make sure that this is actually going to stop the game, I'm going to throw under event control. You're going to see a stop all block. I'm going to throw that into here, into the same, if the computer is equal to 5, stop the entire game. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that's going to work, but we can't actually test this until we have the paddle moving because we haven't done that yet either. So if you think about where this is going to go, I'm just going to make the game space a little bit bigger again. This is going to go into the same general area as all of these if statements, okay? So I do want this part to be dependent on this condition. So if you want, we can just throw it right here. We can just put this last if statement that we need right at the top. So we have an if then, and we're going to go ahead and take that. And like I said, we're going to put it right at the top here. I don't want it to be around everything else though. So actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it right here instead. Good. Okay, the important thing is that was kind of hard to maneuver and put it here because it assumed that I wanted it to go with all this. So I've put it underneath these touching color if statements. Make sure again it's not inside of these, but make sure it is inside of this condition. So if you follow this condition down where it's checking to see if it's less than 6, you can see that it does include that. Okay. All right, so what we're doing here is the paddle code to make sure that it bounces off the paddles accurately. And I'm going to do an operator for this. And I'm going to do an or instead of an and this time. So if, for example, we're going to go to sensing, and we're going to say touching something. If it's touching the player paddle, or if it's touching the computer paddle. This is just a way that we can do them both at the same time, because as you know right now, when we run this game, there's no chance of actually hitting the ball back. It doesn't do anything, okay? So if it touches either one of those, what do we actually want this to do? Well, we want it to redirect, don't we? Off the paddle and go somewhere else. So now it's a matter of figuring out the angle that this is going to work at. So let's go to motion, and let's ask the ball to simply turn by a certain amount of degrees. I'm going to ask it to turn to the right by 90 degrees, and I'm just estimating here. I'm just trying different things to see what this would look like. So we're going to stop and start the game again. And you can see there it goes. It bounced off the player paddle. It bounced off the computer paddle. You may or may not like that angle of 90 degrees. You may want to try 70 degrees or 80 degrees. Or eventually you may want to get really fancy and randomly pick different things. Okay, so there's ways to do that. I'm not going to get into that now because all we want is the basics for now, how to make this game work. And right now, at least, it does bounce off the paddles. Okay, I will tell you one other thing about the bouncing off the paddles. The size of the ball is going to matter a lot. This ball is a little bit big for the perfect type of bounce. I've known that from doing this a few times. So if I actually change the size of the start to like 35% for the ball, that might work better, or let's just see. Okay, good. So far so good. It is bouncing off the paddles okay. But because the physics of the ball is based on the weight of the ball and how big the ball is how much weight it has, you will find that this number here of what the ball is set to is going to matter a lot for the quality of the bounces that you get. Okay, that is basically the code for level 1. Let me actually play this once through. I've made this pretty easy right now. I shouldn't have too hard of a time getting my points because the computer is not very quick to get to the ball. There's 2 points already. We can see that I'm in round 1. The computer basically hits it back the first time and then has quite a bit of trouble with it after that. That's okay. That's what I want. I want the first round to be really easy for everybody to gain confidence, and then I want level 2 to be a bit more of a challenge. Okay, and let's see if I can get this passed. Oh, this time he's doing better. So there is some randomness to this. There we go. So press space to continue, and there we go. It says player 1 wins round 1. You've now done a lot. Notice that the ball is kind of traveling like this, and it continuously says that because it is in a forever loop. So at the start of the next tutorial, we're going to look at how to make that so it doesn't happen, so that it just says it once, and then we can move on to level 2. But you've done a lot if you've got this far. You have 1 working level of Pong, and you're going to see that making levels 2 and 3, although it takes some thinking about how to do it, because we already have all of this code for level 1, and we're going to be able to right-click and duplicate, we're going to be able to make level 2 and 3 in a fraction of the time. So you've really done a lot. A couple things I'd recommend at this point. 1, obviously go to File, Save Now. But 2, I would go to File, Save to your computer. And what that will do is just download a copy to your computer that you now have a copy that's like quite a bit of work, that has 1 working level. And in case something goes wrong in the next little while with your level 2 or 3, you can always go back to this just by going to File, Load from your computer. You could load up this old copy and work from there instead of starting over. Hope you're having fun so far. In the next one, we will talk about level 2 and beyond and what you can do to make this even more interesting. All right, take care. Talk to you next time.